The laughter hit me before I even reached the living room, loud and careless, the kind that lets you know exactly where you rank without anyone saying your name. I remember stopping in my tracks, one hand still on the doorframe, watching people I shared blood with compare Christmas gifts that cost more than everything I'd saved in a year. Someone joked about promotions. Someone flashed a ring. Then a voice, just a little too loud, asked why I was still broke, still single, still figuring things out. The room laughed. That's when I walked outside, pulled a crumpled $50 bill from my pocket, handed it to a stranger near the gate, and said, "I know, this sounds crazy, but can you pretend to be my boyfriend tonight?" Yeah, I actually did that. At that point in my life, pride was already a luxury I couldn't afford. I wasn't looking for romance. I was looking for air. My name is Maya Collins, and for most of my 20s I was the family example of what not to become. After my parents passed away within a year of each other, I moved into my aunt's house in a quiet suburb outside Atlanta. Everyone praised her for saving me. What they didn't see was the invisible invoice attached to that kindness. Every meal was counted. Every mistake was remembered. Gratitude wasn't enough. Gratitude had to be quiet, obedient, and permanent. By 25, I worked at a small copy and print shop downtown. Flyers, menus, business cards. People called me Sweetheart instead of by my name. My paycheck barely covered gas and personal expenses, but every month my aunt reminded me that I needed to contribute. Not as a thank you, as proof. In that house, I wasn't introduced as family. I was introduced as the girl we help. Christmas magnified everything. Every year it turned into a performance. Relatives showed up polished and loud. Conversations circled money, weddings, and success, and somehow always landed on me. This year felt worse. My cousin Lauren arrived glowing engaged, working some corporate job she loved, reminding everyone about. My uncle, a pastor, sipped his drink and said, "Sometimes struggle follows disobedience," while smiling like he was doing me a favor. Nobody pushed back. I smiled until my face hurt. That's why I ended up outside pretending to take a phone call I didn't have, telling myself to just survive one night. That's when I noticed him. He didn't look like a guest. No fancy clothes, no forced confidence, just standing there, calm, hands in his jacket pockets like the world hadn't asked him to prove anything lately. The idea hit me fast, reckless, born out of exhaustion more than logic. I offered him $50 and one job: stand next to me, act like you care just for tonight. He looked at me for a long second, not scanning me like I was desperate entertainment, but really looking. Then he nodded. "I'm Ethan," he said. His voice was steady. He added something unexpected. "I won't lie unless I have to, and I won't let anyone disrespect you in front of me." I laughed nervously and told him I didn't need protection, just presence. He replied, "Presence is protection." I didn't understand that yet. The moment we walked inside, the room changed. Not dramatically, subtly. Conversations paused. Eyes swept over him, judging his jacket, his shoes, the way he stood beside me without clinging or showing off. Lauren's smile froze for half a second before resetting. "Oh," she said, "you finally brought someone." I introduced him. He nodded politely. Someone asked what he did for a living. "I work," he said. That was it. A few people chuckled. My uncle leaned forward. Work can mean many things. Ethan met his eyes calmly. So can humility. The chuckles died. I felt something shift in my chest, small but real. Dinner was tense. Comments were tossed casually like they were jokes. When someone interrupted me, Ethan waited, then said, "She wasn't finished." When my uncle joked about women needing guidance, Ethan asked, "Do you think guidance requires embarrassment?" He never raised his voice, never smiled smugly. He just stayed present. Somehow, that unsettled them more than arguing ever could. Later, my aunt cornered me in the kitchen. "He's odd," she whispered. Unpolished, but confident. I admitted I hadn't noticed. I apologized to Ethan afterward for my family. He shrugged and said, "I know what it looks like when someone's been trained to shrink." That sentence hit harder than anything said all night. The next morning, everything exploded. Breakfast turned into a tribunal. My aunt accused me of disrespect of bringing a stranger into her home. Then she revealed the real reason she was angry. She'd arranged for me to meet a man. Older, stable, a solution, she called it, like I was a problem file. When I protested, she reminded me I owed her everything, that I wouldn't survive on my own. That's when Ethan stood up, slowly, deliberately. No, he said, one word, calm, heavy. She's not something you get to assign. The room froze. My aunt laughed sharply and asked who he thought he was. He answered, someone who recognizes cruelty when it's dressed up as concern. When she threatened to throw me out, asked if he could afford to take responsibility for me, he placed my $50 bill on the table. You think this defines my worth? He asked quietly. And you think she's worth less? The atmosphere shifted from uncomfortable to dangerous. Accusations followed. My cousin suddenly claimed her bracelet was missing. The implication was clear. My aunt demanded my bag be searched. I felt myself shrinking out of habit. Ethan stepped in immediately. Call the police, he said calmly. If there's a crime, let it be handled properly. They hesitated. He asked about security cameras. 10 minutes later, footage showed my cousin slipping the bracelet into a couch cushion herself. Silence fell. Thick, ugly. My aunt still ordered us out, and for the first time in my life I walked through that gate without apologizing. Outside, fear crashed into me. I had no plan, no savings, just the man I'd paid to pretend standing beside me like he wasn't pretending at all. That's when the truth came out. Ethan wasn't just Ethan. He was Ethan Reed, founder of a logistics company I'd definitely heard of. Quiet billionaire. Powerful. He told me he'd stayed anonymous on purpose. Power warps people. He wanted to know who treated him like a human without needing anything. I was furious. Hurt. I insisted on paying him back, pushing the money into his hand. I needed to know I didn't owe him anything. I didn't realize danger had already noticed me. Within days, things escalated. Men followed me. Subtle threats arrived disguised as offers. A powerful executive connected to Ethan's company suggested I disappear for my own good. Offered money, a job. Silence. I said no. Instead, I told my story to a journalist who'd been threatened the same way. The article dropped not as gossip, but as evidence. Patterns, systems, names. It got worse before it got better. A window at my job was smashed. Lawsuits were filed. Headlines twisted the narrative. But something had changed. I wasn't alone anymore, and I wasn't shrinking. I kept working. I showed up. I spoke plainly. In court, I testified. Not dramatically, honestly. When asked why I spoke up, I said, because silence already hurt me, and I didn't want anyone else told disappearing was the price of safety. Ethan testified too. Not as my savior, as someone who refused to let power hide behind money. The verdict came months later. Guilty, not closure, accountability. Life didn't turn into a fairy tale. It got quieter. I opened a small design studio with notebooks I'd hidden for years. Clients came slowly. I earned everything. Ethan stayed close but never in front of me. When he offered a key, it came without conditions. I chose it. Not because I needed saving, because I wanted partnership. This was never a rescue story. It was a refusal to keep agreeing with the lie that I was replaceable. Dignity isn't something you earn by pleasing people. Safety isn't something you buy by disappearing. And real support doesn't steal your voice. It stands beside it. So let me ask you this. Where have you been taught to shrink? Who benefits from your silence? And what would happen if you stopped asking permission to take up space? Tell me what you think. Push back if you disagree. Share your own story. Because the line between right and wrong, between help and control, isn't always obvious until someone refuses to disappear.